Hello, this is Ninja Nissie, and I write and draw the webcomic Thief Catcher RingTail. This is a speed draw going through my comic drawing process using Clip Studio Paint EX. At the bottom left corner is my avatar Migi. I use her for VTubing, and then in the top right corner I have my thumbnails in the subview panel. This page already paneled out, but you can see once the panels are in place, I add in all the dialogue. And I'm checking back and making sure I'm consistent with how I write things. It's kind of hard to see, but I kind of scribble all the dialogue in the margins of my thumbnails, so sometimes it's not clear what I'm trying to say. So I always check back on previous pages and make sure I'm consistent with dialogue and that kind of thing. And here I'm just styling up the dialogue. And once that's done, I go in on a bottom layer behind everything, and I just start sketching using a pencil tool. So a tool that I kind of like customized there for myself because I like the gritty look of it, and I like how it layers. So I can kind of keep refining my sketches. And I just block everything in pretty roughly. I don't use any line tools or rulers or anything. I just kind of throw things in there. And then I add in speech balloons as I go. Sometimes I wait until the end and do them all at once. I like to freehand the speech balloons. I just like that organic look. Yep. Everything's drawn kind of on one layer for the sketch, and yeah, so I can just keep working it and stuff until I get the right look. And I do one page, and then I go sketch on the next page eventually. Yep. Now this page I didn't set up the panel, so you can see I usually start with one single frame, and then I use the frame divider to kind of break it all up. Usually I don't have quite as a strange layout, but it just depends on what I write, and then I use like the edges and pull them out and tweak them the way I want it. Make them more unique that way. Add in the dialogue, as I said before. You can kind of see my thumbnails now. I write the dialogue in the margins, and then I write a number it where that goes into the page layout. Then it's sketching time. I just roughly block things in, tweak with them until they feel right. Obviously I had to redo that one. I was just not feeling it. But I try and keep it loose, not committing to anything. I'm just trying to find what feels right and what looks right. What the most visual impact for what I'm trying to do. And like there you see, like I felt that speech bubble was taking up too much space, so I made it more vertical. Trying to figure out how to make her look more like she's looking down, getting like a more top view of her head. And also I use like those crosshairs to kind of like figure out where the center of her head is to put her face in easier. I have a reference of a lot of the different rooms that I draw throughout the comic and different things, and so I have a reference for Rose's room in particular, just so every time I draw it I stay consistent. Which this door is not consistent, but you'll see what happens to that later. Then I add in speech bubbles. Like to do them by hand, keep them like kind of organic looking, but then I go back in with like the vector pinch tool, get them just right. Sometimes I'll delete points just to get them smooth. And then I change the sketch layer to blue so it's easier to ink in front of. So then I go back to the first page and I start inking it. It's just easier for me to go kind of sketch one page, sketch a second page, then go back and ink. It gives me enough time away from each page so that I kind of come back to it with fresh eyes. Also keep in mind, as fast as this is going, each step takes about 1 to 3 hours. I think these pages particularly took me about 2 hours per day, so 2 hours for the sketch, about 2 hours for the inks. 1 to 2 hours. These were actually fairly simple, but sometimes it can take as much as like 3 or 4 hours just to do each step, like inking, just because looking for references and or if it calls for like a detailed background. There I just pulled in a sign from her door from a different page, from an older chapter, just to keep it consistent. And I just warped it to fit, and then now I'm using the line tool to draw like these graphics on her computer screen, keep everything nice and crisp. I don't use anti-aliasing for these just because this is drawn at 600 dpi, and so when I resize it, whether for print or for the web view, when you resize it, the lines just come out much crisper that way. And now I'm working on this keyboard, which is I really should have just taken a photo of a keyboard and like warped it and extracted it or something, because as you can see, this is going really fast now. In reality, it was taking me a very long time, and I don't know, it was not a very practical way or practical use of my time drawing all these tiny parallel lines. Just changing how it fits. And then I mask it eventually behind her hands, as you can see there. Add a mask, that way I can get back to it if I want to reuse it later. I don't know if you saw a green thing. I also sometimes, especially for like straight things, I'll use the simplify tool from for vectors just to make things less curvy. Can this look more like a website, bringing in a logo that I had designed for these characters earlier, putting that in. As you can see, the page around the panel looks blue because each panel has like a mask around it, so I can, draw straight out of the panel. I don't have to worry about like, getting out of the margins or the panel lines. Everything stays nice and neat within there. And if I do ever want to get out of the panel lines, I can always change the mask or draw above it. Next page. As you can see, I go back and I grab the keyboard from the other page just to make my life easier, less things to draw. And I took so much time on it anyways. I deleted the mask and then I just warped it to match the perspective. And then I remasked it. And then around here is when I realized I had the layers in the wrong order for it to be overlapping the way I wanted. It's an easy fix. It's just rearranging layers. I hide one layer so I can see the other panel more easily. Because right now each panel has like a white paper layer behind it, and so I hide those so I can see the sketch layer. And then I unhide it when I want to just see the clean lines. And then here I as I said before, the door was not consistent with the references I was using, so I went back and fixed it. And then I start inking again with the line tool for all the straight edges, like the door. Use circle tool for the doorknob, and then freehanded everything else. I love being able to like move vectors around so easily. Just use the object tool and just move them around. Yeah. And then clean up my speech bubbles and continue. Yep. Use the vector pinch because I didn't like the way her hair fell. Now I checked back to see what is behind her there, and it's like a closet door, so I draw all these lines and then I just duplicate them because we don't really need to be drawing so many lines constantly. Yep, and then those are the inks, and then I go back to the first page and then I start adding tones, adding large areas of black and trying to get like a nice contrast, you know, keep the black and white areas balanced. I use a lasso tool for a lot of the shadings, and then I just insert tones. You can see on like the selection toolbar there is a tone button that I use. You can't see it with the way I captured it, but it comes up and you can tell it, you know, like the frequency of dots you want and stuff. Since this is at 600 DPI, for most of the main characters like clothing and stuff, I keep it at 30, a frequency of 30. And then for like more delicate things like skin and hair, I pull it down to about 32.5 or 42.5 depending. And then for like backgrounds, usually they default at 60, and so I usually leave them as is, and that way it creates like a sense of depth between like the background, the foreground, the characters. Yep, using lasso tool again. And you'll notice a lot of my tools are set not in pixels because I like to, my rulers are in inches, and then like my pens and stuff are in millimeters because I like using real world measurements. I use pens, and like I use micron pens to draw by hand, so just to make it easier to translate from traditional to digital art, I try and keep everything in like real world measurements. Yep, and then just to kind of fill out the space, I used the tones and I kind of cut around it, and that's it. These are the finished pages. Thank you for watching my video. You can follow me at Ninja Nissie on Twitter, or you can also follow at TwinCoon for every time I update with a new page of RingTail, and for other comics that I draw. I post a new RingTail every Friday, so a link will be in the description of this video. Thank you for watching.